Yesterday was a significant day for public accountability. At the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, former Ekurhuleni Metro head of employee relations, Xolani Nciza, faced hard questioning. And then in Parliament, the ad hoc committee looking into police corruption heard testimony from the Chief of Staff for the Minister of Police, Cedrick Nkabinde. These are two critical inquiries that touch on governance and security. So let's look at the connections and the implications of these twin testimonies with security expert Eldred de Klerk. Eldred, good morning. I don't even know where to start, but let's go to Parliament first. And good morning and welcome, by the way. Happy Friday. We saw, an interesting exchange in Parliament yesterday to the point where proceedings had to be halted. But Nkabinde, this is Cedrick Nkabinde, under oath, admitting that some of the dates in his affidavit were essentially thumb-sucked. And when you hear that, you just kind of sit up in your chair. How damaging is an admission like this for the credibility of a witness in a parliamentary inquiry of this magnitude? What does it say about his approach to the integrity of the process?
Yes, indeed. It is very damaging to any witness's credibility to be found wanting in your witness testimony. I think, though, that the evidence leaders have a role to play, as some of the members of the ad hoc committee has already told them. They prepare witnesses for this. It's not enough to say that witnesses have legal counsel. They were advised. A witness, Nkabinde apparently told the evidence leaders that he's not ready to provide testimony. That should have been enough. And as they were as both the committee and the chair of the committee and others advised the country that witnesses are called to be able to assist the ad hoc committee to understand what's going on, what's at play, who's involved, to what extent is there political interference and a capture of the institutions. So witnesses, in fact, should be fully prepared, assisted, so that they can provide the best testimony possible. Now, Nkabinde faces a perjury charge because he succumbed, I believe, to pressure to avail himself to the committee. I think he should have told the committee in no uncertain terms from the beginning he's not ready and he would rather not want to provide testimony at this time. Beyond that, This is a lesson for all other witnesses. Don't make the same mistake.
Well, beyond the witnesses, because as you say, he already had indicated that he wasn't ready to testify, it is, not to pursue haste, but to pursue thoroughness and the hygiene of the process, because it doesn't serve everyone. Both sides lose. He loses, Parliament loses, and the country loses because we don't have the information that we need. And as you say, that's now led to a potentially criminal outcome insofar as the pursuit of perjury charges against him. And you've given us the caution there. So, how then does the committee view that evidence? Because it's now on record. It's in that system. Should they stop the process and perhaps restart with him at another point?
That would be the wise thing to do. It's not all of his testimony, but you cannot cherry pick a witness testimony, which is what the also other committee members were saying about Lieutenant General Mchunu's testimony. Can you cherry pick? The bulk of his testimony seemed to be credible. There were parts of his testimony where he were found wanting and he had to retract it. The evidence leader seemed to suggest it's enough to alter and make an adjustment or amendment to your testimony. Others were saying, no, your entire testimony must be one coherent whole. And if there are holes, excuse the pun, in your testimony, you must be able to afford the opportunity to redraft a new testimony and provide that to the committee. If that's the option for the committee and the committee chair, that any witness will come and provide a wholly and entirely new testimony, then it would be only fitting for Nkabinde to come back with a new testimony and start afresh.
And I think, as you say, really, I think it's an important moment of consideration in the entire process, because what's the goal? the goal is not to embarrass people that will come into the ad hoc committee, but to get to the truth. I mean, I think South Africans, and I'm not speaking for all South Africans, of course, Eldred, are beyond the sensation of these processes. What they want to see is a credible outcome that leads to action being taken. And more importantly, the whole reason that this exists, and that is the cleanup of the system. Let's look at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. We've always said, parallel processes, but twinned. They are going to hear testimony today from the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department's Head of Media and Public Relations. But yesterday, Xolani Nciza's testimony was also quite telling. He was talking about how he was victimized for wanting to do his job properly. And then, of course, we also saw the video come to light of this relationship that seems to have been emerging between Julius Mkhwanazi and Imogen Mashazi. What was your reading of it?
Well, one of the critical things, if we can link the ad hoc committee and the Madlanga Commission, is the fact that there were certain individuals who, on behalf of criminal syndicates and cartels, were essentially undertaking a criminal enterprise. And the question I kept being left with was, who is this Julius Mkhwanazi? Because he seems to have a network of connections and that favor and work in his favor and do his bidding and at his behest. And who supports him? And if that's if that's an example of the kind of individuals that's operating in public departments and public spaces, and in this case, the law enforcement environment in particular, then that is worrisome, because he's only but an example of the rot and the extent of the capture of that of that municipality. So the other worrying part of the testimony that came out yesterday was the fact that there was a member of our law enforcement community saying that this had had a decisive impact on his life and the life of his family. And yet he was saying that despite all of this, he continues to hold faith that something will be done and things will be set right or straight, so to speak. And that he is asking for cool heads to prevail as it prevailed in his labor dispute, at least when it came to his activities, his main faith activity within his church. So all those messaging, I think we got to take to heart, because today we might hear testimony, we're supposed to hear testimony that corroborates what's already been said, that here was an individual acting as if he was chief of police, and not just acting chief of police, with the support of certain HODs, and he was able to favor members of a criminal cartel. And that is deeply worrisome when it comes to the extent of influence over a municipality and its law enforcement agency.
When we saw that video, which was played for the commission yesterday, and you saw the question by one of the commissioners there about whether it was, normal behavior for Brigadier Mkhwanazi to make a statement such as the one that he would lay down his life or even take a bullet for the city manager, then Imogen Mashazi. What was your reading into that?
It's extremely disconcerting that a member of a law enforcement agent should tell his boss, essentially, that I'll take a bullet for you, because there should be no circumstance in which he needs to take a bullet. So if he's saying, I'm taking a proverbial bullet for you, and that means that I will take the fall to protect your criminal wrongdoing or your activities, or allow you to run roughshod over the department, and actually put others to a loyalty test, saying that if you're not loyal to her, then, or loyal to me, as she was alleged to have said, then you might as well pack up and leave, because there's no space for you. So these fiefdoms, these cults of personality that unduly influences a department, its culture, its decision making, and actually who gets employed there, this cannot obviously be good for a public service department, nor can it be good for it actually fulfilling its mandate, because you do that at the bidding and the behest and loyal to a particular individual who, in this case, we don't know what her intentions are. So nobody should be taking a bullet for anybody, whether that is in the figurative terms or in figuratively, or in any other way, because there shouldn't be a circumstance in which that's required of you. There's no loyalty test for being a member of a municipal metro police.
Yeah. Before you go, and quickly, if we can, Eldred, the Madlanga Commission must now probe Western Cape cop gang links. That's a headline in the Cape Times I talked about earlier. But finally, the police ombuds report, the Western Cape Police Ombuds report is out, released after that 3-year delay. I'm not sure if you've had sight of it yet, but essentially, again, there are concerns about gang leaders having a seat at the table. Not new, we've heard that before, but more details coming out, even though parts of that report are redacted. Have you seen it, and what is your quick observation around that?
Well, we haven't seen the extent of the report, but we've been watching the actual inquiry and the investigation. And we've had different conversations with the ombudsperson and the ombudsman and others, and communities that are affected directly by this. So the narrative is well known. The extent of police being complicit in getting guns onto the Cape Flats, the extent of police individuals and officers warning gangsters that raids are going to be undertaken, all that is very well known. Communities have testified to this effect. They've given names and they've provided evidence to that. We've had the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry. We've had crime summits in the Western Cape. Things don't seem to be shifting. We had the acting minister saying that he's put together a coherent gang plan. That we haven't seen the impact of that yet. So there's not a lot of hope that things will shift. All it will do, obviously, I think obviously what it could do, is add to a picture that we're already getting from the ad hoc committee and from Madlanga, that the institution of the South African Police Service actually is due for an overhaul and a transformation, and so too its leadership.
That's something you have said before as well. Eldred de Klerk, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.